All right, it is my pleasure to talk to you today about Farewell, My Concubine, a 1993 Chinese film, not a Taiwanese Chinese film or a Hong Kong Chinese film, but a mainland China film. This is a film that came out directly underneath the authority and the permission granted to it by the Chinese Communist Party under the leadership at that time of Deng Xiaoping in the early 1990s, when the Chinese government was in a period of greater receptivity and cultural exchange with Western nations. The director, Chen Kaige, is a part of a group that's known as the fifth generation of filmmakers. And this is just stuff that I've picked up from the supplemental features included in this beautiful 4K Blu-ray combination set. He was himself a child of a director, a man who made movies in China. But during his youth, Chen Kaige reported on his father during the Cultural Revolution, a time when young people were, I would say, brainwashed or indoctrinated into unswerving support for the Maoist government and all of the reforms that they were trying to instill within Chinese society. And he turned in his father, as he admits later on in life, for his own personal gain. That led to a lot of problems, as you could imagine, imprisonment and brutality and all of that. But he also experienced some of that himself. And this film kind of walks viewers through an extremely turbulent period of Chinese history, starting in the late 1920s, ending around 50 years later in the 1970s. It's the story of two boys who grow up alongside each other. They become trained under very abusive circumstances to become opera performers in what's called Peking opera, in which one of the characters plays the part of a king and the other character plays the part of a concubine, a female concubine. So these are male actors, one of whom has to take on the persona of a female character. And that certainly plays very heavily into the story. Let me just show you. This is the interior art. So here's our concubine character. Here's our king character, and here is the wife of the king character. In real life, they got married, at least in real life in the movie, that is. And it becomes kind of a love triangle between the three of them. In particular, the concubine, who has very strong, sincere yearnings and feelings for the king that are never fully requited, and yet they lead to all sorts of emotional complications. So what you have in Farewell, My Concubine is an absolutely epic tale. It's a 3-hour movie that takes place, like I say, over the course of a 50-year narrative arc with incredible performances, the rigor and discipline of being able to do Peking opera, especially if you're just an actor who's got to learn the lines and the parts and the moves, is pretty impressive. Nothing short of astonishing when you really look at it and sink yourself into what he had to learn. Leslie Chung, I'm talking about, to play that part. Obviously, he's putting a lot of his heart and soul into that performance, but the other performers as well. Gong Li, she's the female lead, and she's a pretty impressive screen presence, a very formidable woman herself. I don't remember the other guy's name, but they're all excellent at what they do. But you've also got the depiction of China in different situations, the cities, the kind of the rundown areas, the very ornate, privileged sectors that they travel in. Beautiful cinematography. I mean, all the elements are there for an extremely eye-dazzling visual spectacle. With strong emotions and a look into a culture that may seem to a lot of us, including myself, kind of exotic and unusual and incredibly complex and a deep tradition that goes back, centuries, if not millennia. You're just kind of in awe of this depiction of a world that seems, in some ways very far away, very remote and distant, and yet at the same time the passions and the intensity and the struggles are very relatable, in the sense that these are very human characters going through extremely challenging times and circumstances, both what's happening around them historically and also what's happening within their inner beings and their relationships, and the betrayals and the struggles and the unexpected challenges and disruptions that they face. Let's take a look at the trailer. Maybe I'll have a few things to say, or maybe I'll just let the trailer speak for itself. We'll see how it comes through in the editing. Okay, I'll give you a little voiceover commentary on the trailer here. So yeah, there's the concubine character, Leslie Cheung, and you just get to see some of the, just the gorgeous imagery right off the bat there. You can read the subtitles. I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of the teaser that they're giving you as far as the story. And there's the king. You see the awards that it's racking up, and again, yeah, just the atmosphere. And this is a new 4K restoration, very beautiful image quality for sure, and it's a complete uncut film. There apparently was a lot of censorship, not just from China, but Harvey Weinstein did his shenanigans with the film as well, so the North American audiences never got to see the full director's vision here. I think he wanted to maybe make it a little bit more commercial, maybe cut down on some of the more controversial or graphic elements. So you get to see exactly what Chiang Kai-ge had in mind as his vision was realized. Stunningly beautiful. Can't argue with old Roger Ebert on that. Yeah, that was one of the early scenes, kind of a black and white stylized depiction of the youth of these young men. And yeah, lushly exotic, powerful. Yes, it's all true. I endorse everything that you're seeing up on the screen here. And yeah, this will definitely, there's a key moment right there, really, bring back a lot of memories for people who've loved this film for a long time. For me, it was a new discovery. But let me tell you a little bit now about what you get in this set. Okay, so this is the case here. Obviously, you see beautiful artwork in the front. There's the back cover. You can also read all the stuff that's in the disc on the website, but I'll just tell you a little bit of my impressions. You get this very nice little insert here. It's just the kind of the fold out, the usual, but this is a very nicely done. This is kind of the front cover, if you will. The concubine and the king split in half, and then the king with his divided loyalties between his wife. She's a woman who's been rescued from a brothel, a source of shame and scandal and degradation in the eyes of many, and yet she's a very formidable presence, played by the actress Gong Li. Here's another look at the inside. I'll kind of give you a closer look at that. And then you've got this essay, which kind of spells out a little bit more of the history there. And then a very compelling climactic moment from the film. If you've seen it, you kind of recognize what's starting to go on there. The film is not as rich on supplemental features as maybe others, like I just did The Black God, White Devil, which had 2 feature-length documentaries on a second Blu-ray disc. This one, because it is a 4K film and nearly 3 hours long, that's what you're going to get on the first disc. And then the Blu-ray is going to have a couple supplements. One of the supplements is a discussion between a film scholar and a producer, Janet Yang and Michael Berry. They just kind of talk a little bit about their personal takes on the film. Janet Yang has a lot of personal history. She helped distribute this film in the United States. She is based in San Francisco. She's lived in China, and her company was kind of one of the main importers of Chinese films, and so she had a pretty important hand in the circulation of this film, and it has some great stories to tell about the making of and the cultural impact of Farewell My Concubine. There's also a 20-minute making of documentary that looks like it was probably a 10th anniversary supplement on a previous release of the film, and there's finally a director's interview with Chiang Kai-ge and Charlie Rose from the old Charlie Rose TV show, where Chiang Kai-ge, kind of in the flush of his first success, winning the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in 1993, and the very successful theatrical run that the film had back at that same time, he was over in the United States doing interviews, publicity, and really riding the crest of a wave, which was very well deserved. He made an incredibly powerful film, and was recognized and rewarded for that. Now, this is a film that's gone through some censorship, and they talked about that in the scholar and producer chat. about some of the cuts that the Chinese government made. This is a film that deals with some taboo topics, homosexuality. The two men have a yearning for each other, the concubine in particular, towards the king figure. Also, some pretty piercing cultural critique of the Chinese government and the Cultural Revolution, which is very interesting because when you first watch it, it's like, wow, it's pretty surprising that the Chinese government, even of 1993, would allow some of those scenes to be depicted that don't put the Chinese government of the 1950s and 60s in a very flattering light. And there was a backlash to that. Deng Xiaoping was a supporter of the film, but there were others within the higher circles of the Chinese government that were very disturbed by the fact that this was a cultural export that they just could not feel good about. So there was some censorship after the movie had already been released. There was an effort actually to suppress the film entirely. That was met with a pretty big backlash because people in China did know that this was a film getting a lot of international recognition, and it told their story. And it was a story that I'm sure a lot of people could relate to in all different ways, because there's a big swath of life that's being shown on screen here. Because this is also not just about the Cultural Revolution of the 60s, but the Japanese occupation of Manchuria in the 1930s and the fall of the Japanese army at the end of World War II, and the reconstruction as the Maoists took over a very short-lived republic, the republic that ended up fleeing to Taiwan later on after Mao assumed full control of China. And so, you've got all these reversals. And in the midst of it all, there is the performance of this opera, Farewell, My Concubine, an ancient, very ritualistic, highly stylized performance that talks about love, betrayal, loyalty, self-sacrifice, and endurance and perseverance in the face of inhuman torments, persecutions, oppositions, doubts, and struggles. It's all there. A very moving film. Of course, the 4K transfer is immaculate. It's gorgeous. The Blu-ray looks pretty good as well. It's a very wonderful package. If you're into Chinese film, this is a very interesting look, and I think you'd be very satisfied to bring this one home, put it in the player, and add it to your collection.